Hi folks, today in one single video we're going to examine 4 topics. The first topic is opera art or entertainment? Is opera in danger as an art form? And what is true artist? B. Who is a real appoggio singer? Why the notion too loud never works in opera? C. How should you prepare a difficult aria and the ways of mastering it, phrase by phrase, changing the keys and other elements. And D, I would call this topic, why I'm a tenor with a long neck. And I explain it graphically why you don't have to be a tenor necessarily if you have a long neck, or you can be a tenor or any voice. So let's go to what is opera and if opera is an entertainment or an art form. Is opera an entertainment or art? Quick answer? Probably you say both. And I would say no. Grand opera, serious opera, is not an entertainment. It is real art. And what's the difference between real art and entertainment? You often hear from my lectures that I say that opera is in danger. One of the reasons opera is in danger, it's a controversial subject because I blame personally popularization of the opera, which on one hand made opera known to the masses, which is not bad itself. On the other hand, opera started to be dependent on the masses, right? Instead of, like real art, educate the masses, it started to fall under the mass demands. You see, what's the difference between art and entertainment? I don't dislike entertainment. I think it has its own place. I mean, it would be stupid. What's the difference between fine French restaurant and McDonald's? You see, I am, in my eating habits, I'm a McDonald's guy, though I don't go to McDonald's very often. I know it's not good for your health, but in general, I'm not creative with food. I'm very straightforward, and I recognize that simple-mindedness of my brain. For some reason, if you tell that opera is not for masses, people get offended. They say, "Oh, you're being snob." First of all, let me tell you, I'm not saying that opera is not for masses, meaning opera is only for rich people or for, I don't know, PhD professors. No. In fact, opera is such a thing even the very poor people can like. Elitist quality of the opera is not in what class of society you belong to. Because in Italy, opera was liked by very simple people, even poor people on the streets. It was a popular art in a way. The opera is a dramatic art. Like real art, I'll give you another example. Okay, McDonald's, a fine French restaurant, Hollywood. At least 90% of productions, and European movies, French movies, Franco-Italian movies, you see the difference. You see, the French movies or Italian movies are not necessarily entertaining. They're deep and they bring you catharsis. You cry with them. You deeply undergo the whole tragedy with the characters of the movies. This is what is elitist feelings. Not everybody wants in this life to listen to something deep and undergo this depth of emotions and everything. Most of the people, they like entertainment. Even if you tell you some spooky story, then you have to entertain them at the end, happy end, so-called. So this is an entertainment, and from that point of view, 90%, majority of the people, they like to be entertained. They don't like real art, and this is okay. This is fine. But when we go to opera and any drama, when those kind of people go to opera who like to be entertained, they don't understand the character, they don't understand what Othello is supposed to be, why the Othello is supposed to be dramatic voice and dark voice and a little bit rough voice if you like, You know, those people go to opera with the general notions of loving music. Britney Spears, Josh Groban, Bocelli if you like. They want to hear that in opera too, and when they hear something more distant from that, more serious, no, I didn't like it, you know. And these people prefer, for funny reasons, you know, this is true, those people prefer to listen to and to take seriously Bocelli's opera singing. You might ask me, well, what's wrong with Bocelli? Nothing's wrong with Bocelli. Bocelli is a great singer in his own semi-classical, semi-popular way. His singing touches me. When he goes to opera, I'm sorry, he is not more than average. I wouldn't say that he's a bad singer, but in opera standards, he is an average. I mean, it's like you would never make a career, but you still love him. Why? Ask yourself a question. I don't know why. This tendency of making opera popular, not for the reason of, okay, let everybody understand how deep this art is, how significant. Now, let's put this art down to the people who like entertainment and let's make some money. That's the whole goal, and that's why I'm so concerned about opera. Not only the microphones boosting some people's voices, but the tendency to please the general public with that. What is the idea behind to please general public? Make as much money as you can. Is there any difference between the attitude of an artist who creates art, composer, or even opera singer, and the ones who create entertainment? And I tell you, there's a huge difference. First of all, it doesn't matter what kind of genre this artist works. It could be any genre. The most important thing is that the artist doesn't think necessarily of pleasing the audience. He's just being very honest with his own worldview. He's an honest person, and he puts that in music, into his poetry, he doesn't think of the profit. Oh, if I put this word, public's gonna like it. Well, let me do it this way. He doesn't think that way, and that's the big difference between an entertainer and a real true artist. I've talked about standard coaching, and I said that the standard coaching is one of the greatest diseases of our musical time of today. It means there is no personality. It's kind of an average good that everybody accepts. Is that art? Standard coaching leads to entertainment, and I would say boring entertainment. We should totally say no to standard coaching. I don't know how though. The entertainer though, the ones who create something for the public, he thinks clearly about pleasing public. Say, what's wrong with that? Pleasing the public is good. But if we take this connection backwards and we see the public is pleased with what? Public is always pleased, majority of the public is pleased with entertainment, not the real art, because majority prefers McDonald's. You see, true art is a great research of your own soul, the style, and everything that surrounds you, the stories, the reality of the life. Everything is getting into the true artist's consciousness, and he expresses that, and often he sees things long before they appear to general public, and this is his great advantage. And though Johann Sebastian Bach was not recognized as a genius in his own lifetime, he's one of the greatest geniuses of all. And you see, again, was Johann Sebastian Bach a real great artist? Definitely he was, and he was not pleasing the public. He was not pleasing the public, he was pleasing the truth, if you like, within himself. And that's why entertainment pleasing you, but entertainment is influencing you also to be a very superficial human being. This is a little bit for your entertainment, if you like. You see this long neck animal and you think, well, what kind of voice this animal might have, the giraffe. You know, just judging from the human perspective, you see, as the old prejudices go, cliché go, she's supposed to be a contralto. You see, it's clearly a woman, that's why or if she is a man, that is a basso, clearly even basso profundo. But you see, we don't see where the larynx is here. Larynx could be here, and then in this case, she could be just a high voice. The larynx, natural position of the larynx is here. She could be a lower voice, and if it's here, she could be a very low voice. And it's not correct only to judge by this, because this is the length. Now, how wide it is also important. What kind of vocal cords this particular animal has. Are the long vocal cords capable of producing lower frequencies, or the short vocal cords producing higher frequencies? She could have long vocal cords, or she could have short vocal cords, but then she could have long, thin vocal cords and short, thick vocal cords. You see how many combinations are? So the physical nature of a singer depends on these combinations. And if you see, it's how long your neck is, where your larynx positioned naturally, what kind of vocal cords you have, long or short, and thick or thin. You see, if you have like short vocal cords but thick vocal cords, and you have appropriate chamber of resonance, then you're probably a tenor. So you see, this prejudices, even when you look superficially at the person's height or his neck or anything, you just see superficial thing. You don't know how his body, his machine is constructed inside, as I gave you the example of my first teacher, Basso Profundo Pater Burciuladze. Very short neck, shorter than me, but apparently inside, a very deep inside, which you don't see. Students often ask me the question if that or that singer is appoggio singer, because they need to know if they should follow and listen and even mimic this singer, or for some other reasons. I'll give you this example I always give because it's a very provocative example. Well, I can tell you that the same singer could sing with appoggio and the next song with no appoggio. You ask me, how is that possible? Well, his appoggio range is short. That means that his one tembral range is short, and he is not able to sing, particularly say Celeste Aida, he's not able to sing with 100% appoggio. And Caro Mio Ben is 120% appoggio. So I need you to think about it. So this is another example, is not necessarily even difficulties of this particular piece, repertoire and the volume. Di Stefano, when he was young, a lyric tenor, as much as I know him, he was 100% appoggio lyric tenor, 100%. His voice sounded like one, amazing one. It's one of the most beautiful voices, lyric voices of 20th century. Then he moved to a heavy repertoire, and when he was singing Tosca and other heavier repertoire, I would not ever call him appoggio singer. I would rather call him bad support. So you see, appoggio basically is almost a synonym to bel canto in a way. So beautiful singing, one tembral beautiful singing is appoggio. But again, appoggio could be good. Let's say when you were young, you had natural voice and you sang a particular repertoire, you might have had appoggio technique. And then you move to either heavier repertoire or your range became wider. And then you're not capable of following appoggio rules. And that happens all the time. That's why appoggio is, the range is a one tembral technique. Even the same singer could sing, as I told you, could sing an easy aria like Caro Mio Ben, and then with total 100% appoggio. And then, because his appoggio range is short, let's say his appoggio range reaches only just above passaggio, just a little bit, and then there is no strength to support the higher notes, and then he will try to manipulate and do some placement tricks. That is very important to understand, so that at least those who ask me those questions, I mean, I always have this question, oh, is Josh Groban an appoggio singer? Well, I guess you love Josh Groban, and since you like appoggio technique, so it's important for you to know if Josh Groban. I don't try to put the microphone singers into appoggio category for one reason. You might have one tembral voice in microphone, but that is not his technique. It's a microphone technique, let's say. Of course, with the microphone, you might have an appoggio one tembral singing, or at least it would appear like that. But in real acoustic singing, is a little bit different. Appoggio judged a little bit differently. So please don't ask me about microphone appoggio singers, because you can judge it yourself. Now, I'm not talking about if you like the singer. Any singer that you like, you might just, oh, because I love him, it should have been appoggio, because appoggio is the best technique. It's not necessarily so. Let's apply appoggio technique to more classical production of the voice, though, again, you can apply it not only to classical, but it's more obvious in classical and acoustic production. Well, another question is how loud you are. You know, some teachers who never had experience with opera, if you come for the first time, it's one of your first teachers, you come and you sing, they might say, oh, you have too loud voice. No, we have to change that. This is a great mistake for one reason. First of all, of course, you might force a loud voice. And then I tell you, or anybody else will tell you that this is incorrect and you're screaming out loud. And you can actually produce a free and resonant sound, also very loud. And in that case, the singer who is familiar with opera, he will tell you, wow, this is like real opera voice. And the another teacher will tell you, you're still loud, and he will try to change you. And this is a big mistake. Well, I don't blame the teacher who tells you he's loud. You cannot tell the loudness from forcing. Trust me, in opera, you're never too loud. There's a saying, oh, this guy was too loud in opera. There's no such a thing, unless it's like a small, really 500 people church acoustics, and you put Giacomini out there. In opera, trust me, in Metropole, you never hear, unless they're modified and amplified, you never hear too big voice. Dramatic voices, you hear them clearly. They are round and dark, and you hear them clearly projecting over the orchestra, but you don't hear them loud, no matter how loud they are in real life. Because, again, in opera, there's no... So this is an excuse of, you're too loud. What do you mean you're too loud? If you're forcing, then it's incorrect. But if you are loud naturally, this is blessing. Okay, let's take Alessandro Scarlatti's Già il sole dal Gange, page 74, Schirmer edition. If you take a medium-high voice, it starts with A flat. But I'm going to take it from a lower point. Instead of doing, I will do really, it's like a basso. Già la sole dal Gange, già la sole dal Gange, più chiaro sfavilla. One more time. If you don't push, your resonance will be, we sometimes have this misunderstanding of pushing. You know, different teachers use pushing in a different context. Where I say push on the throat, and I say push down, that's a good push. Starting from the low point of B flat. Già la sole dal Gange, già la sole dal Gange. Già la sole dal Gange, già la sole dal Gange. And then take higher, half a tone. Già la sole dal Gange, già la sole dal Gange. Già la sole dal Gange, già la sole dal Gange. And higher. Già la sole dal Gange, già la sole dal Gange. And higher. Già la sole dal Gange, già la sole dal Gange. eventually we are medium high. Now here in this Già il sole dal Gange is one little hidden problem, is L. L is always problematic if you don't know how to do it. So L has to be very close. Già il sole dal Gange, già il sole dal Gange, not già il sole dal Gange. And now even higher. Già il sole dal Gange, già il sole dal Gange. And this is high tenor. Già il sole dal Gange, già il sole dal Gange. First you have to do is to try articulation without singing the whole notes, like già il sole dal Gange, già il sole dal Gange. And when you really feel free with pronouncing it, singing legato with good resonance, then you can do la 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 or lu lu lu. You can do la 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 la, and then try to connect. Già il sole dal Gange, già il sole dal Gange. You see, what this exercise is meant to do is teaching you how to work on a particular piece. If you really want to master your technique, you work on the phrases. You don't just sing the whole piece 10,000 times in hope that you get it right eventually. You have to take care of every phrase, and I know every vocalist hates that. And most of you, 80%, 85% don't do it, and that's why you're behind. Those who do it, they know themselves much better and they progress much better. So singing just a line of words with appoggio technique, then singing just la la la, the melody, and then singing the whole thing in a different tessitura, checking that your voice responding to the range, and even more than the range of your voice. Se quel guerriero fossi, se il mio sogno s'avverasse. And now the key. Se quel guerriero fossi, se il mio sogno s'avverasse. And now is this in the right key. So the first thing you do is se quel guerriero fossi, se il mio sogno s'avverasse. So you work on appoggio, articulation, to use all the accents with appoggio, not with your throat. And then you sing that in la or lu. And you remember that you have to keep in appoggio, the lowest note is your note of your support. So this is the main principle of appoggio. Even though if you don't have a phenomenal instrument, which very few people have, from A to Z, all the range totally connected, and 100% appoggio regime, that's very rare, though you still can be an appoggio singer if you use appoggio phrase by phrase. For example, if you sing one phrase with total subordination to appoggio rules, that means that the whole phrase is based on the lowest note, not necessarily on the beginning, on the first note of the phrase, because sometimes it starts with low and goes to high. No, even if you sing starts La fleur que tu m'avais jetée, starts with the high note, right? La fleur que tu m'avais jetée. But there is a little secret here. With all long phrases, long ranged phrases, again, the lowest note is the note of support. So it from La. You can reverse this phrase to find the good support. Work on the phrase that you support the low notes. Otherwise, if you're not experienced, you will try to sing on the light high notes, very light, and then you cannot connect to the low. That's what happens, and some people even like this, but they don't know that this happens out of bad technique. And well, the good musicians, they can make it work for them, but that's out of bad technique. Like this, I repeat. So the second part is falsetto. The second part is falsetto, which again, camera lies to you. It says, oh, it's a beautiful sound. Why is Franco is complaining? I'm not complaining, I'm just saying that this second phrase is not a stage sound. It's not operatic sound. It's not theatrical sound. It's good for recordings, but not for the real theatrical stuff. So, La fleur que tu m'avais, even now, I don't necessarily propose you to sing it very with like amazing low God's energy, like you don't have to do that if you don't have it in your voice, but you do have to have a connection and not la veille, la fleur que tu m'avais jetée. Another important thing for professional singers is to understand that tempos could be very different, and the tempos could be beautiful when they're slower than suggested in addition, or they're faster than suggested in addition. You see, the tempo only in the 19th century started to be associated with some mechanical metronomical sequence, and they created it only to suggest, really, not to follow exactly. And for our mechanical and stupid age, we just follow, oh, this is the tempo, 120, so they put tick, 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 let me check it out all the time. No, I mean, tell me who is playing the suggested tempo. And I raise my hands. I did, give me the great conductor, Karajan, if you consider Karajan great conductor, Furtwängler, Toscanini if you like. I don't much like Toscanini, but they all have different tempos. And the tempo is an individual ticking machine. So it will be in the place of the individual. So if you are a strong musical individual, you will take your own tempos. Like any conductor, or if you're a person in power. If you're a conductor, you can still deny the suggested tempos of the singers, and like Toscanini did, and that's why his music was very, very formal in a certain sense. So what my suggestion is here in tempo, when you learn a particular, like they say, you're learning, and there's no secret that you're probably going to learn from listening from some recordings, and there's no secret you will probably learn from your favorite recordings. You will get mimicking after so deeply, profoundly in you that you will only consider that tempo is correct. That's not even your consideration, that's the influence from the recording you liked. What is your tempo, or what is any tempo, you will never know. You will be under influence. You will be indoctrinated by or influenced by favorite conductor or favorite singer. Often when you get professional, you have a problem if the tempo is different, really somewhat different than you learned. And when the conductor says, why are you doing this? And you say, oh, but because this my favorite singer did that. This is very unprofessional. Nobody buys that statement. If you say Maria Callas did it, or Domingo did it, or anybody else did it, I mean, they don't care, because they're all personalities. That the conductor considers himself a personality. He doesn't, why should I follow Maria Callas' tempo or anybody else's? So basically it's the clash of individualities. When you work with conductor, if he's subordinate to you, if you hired him basically and he is doing whatever you want to do, whatever tempos you like, another story. And if he hired you, then he tells you what tempos are. But in any case, you need to be flexible with the tempos. What does it mean? It means that if the suggested tempo is faster than you prefer, then you still need to be able to do it. And in order for that, I advise you to study your arias and even the rest of the operas with a different tempo attitude. For example, again, Se quel guerriero fossi from Radames recitativo. What is suggested tempo here is 126. Let's say this is 126. Se quel guerriero fossi, se il mio sogno s'avverasse. Se quel guerriero fossi, se il mio sogno s'avverasse. This is suggested tempo. Though the tempo starts a little bit later. Allegro vivo starts after you sing this phrase. Nevertheless, you can be close to that tempo or a little bit slower. And what usually the tempos, especially when you start, this is free. There is no accompaniment. Sometimes crazy conductors even conduct this, but this is nothing. I mean, it's freedom for you. What my tempo is, se quel guerriero fossi, se il mio sogno s'avverasse. And then this is 126. So what I suggest to do with all the phrases is to slow them down and sing them faster than you would like to. It's a very difficult thing for any musician. If he gets used to a particular tempo, his whole mind is going to work in this comfortable tempo and is going to be around it. If you're a professional singer, you know that any company you enter, the director, the conductor comes with his own tempo, so you might have big problems of coping with faster tempo or slower, much slower tempo, because in much slower tempos you also need to understand the breathing. It's a different set of things. I think the most dangerous for voices conductors are those who don't remember tempos. For the conductor, not to remember the tempo means for singer that he might fail. Because let's say if your phrase is based on one breathing and suddenly the conductor starts to do it 2 times slower, then of course if you're not flexible enough, if you don't have plan B, you will fail because you won't be able to finish the phrase. And this is not your fault. I mean, well, this is not the time who is to blame. Public will blame you. The actual fault is the conductor's fault because you slow down the tempo suddenly 2 times. In real life, you don't have this who is right, who is wrong thing. The best thing to do is to not to get into the situation like this, is to learn the tempo, your favorite, slower than your favorite, much slower than your favorite, and much faster than your favorite. Se quel guerriero fossi, se il mio sogno s'avverasse. So you see, I mean, it feels like almost a different aria, but learning slow, you also much better understand what you're doing with your voice. You start to pay attention more on your voice components like chiaroscuro, the resonance. The slow learning is very, very good and I recommend it for all.